Now recording for those of you not with us. And is that sharing big enough, or I don't know how it looks on your end?
Looks good.
All right. Oh wait, I was going to put it in play mode. Does that still look good?
Beautiful.
All righty.
Like the curtains. Curtains.
Oh, you just made my night by telling me that. All right. So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're here to talk about ESSER and ESSER II funding. But I actually added a slide about 5 minutes ago with ESSER III funding. So there's a lot to talk about. More importantly, there's a lot of money available. So let me get my bearings here on. All right, so this is about not leaving federal dollars on the table. First of all, as a quick introduction, for those of you who don't know me, Keith Hodgson. I Director of Music Education at the University of the Arts. I also serve as Eastern Division President for another couple months. I'm a consumer educational clinician, conduct a community band, and head director of the American Music Abroad Gold Tour. And I love working with Zeswitz Music as Director of Education. All right, so let's start with ESSER. What is it? It's the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security. That was the CARES Act that was passed over about a year ago, right? Just about a year ago. It's elementary and secondary school emergency relief. These funds are awarded to LEAs based on Title I formula. So LEAs, for the terminology, is local education associations. So we can think about them like districts, right, in our states. Now, it's important to point out that these are not Title I funds. All right, they just use the formula for Title I funds to award a percentage to particular districts. So that's how it's formulated. So round one of the three that we're talking about tonight, ESSER, is $13.2 billion from that CARES Act going toward education. All right, it includes, I believe, if I've looked at my stats correctly, over 523 million for Pennsylvania's districts. Oh, by the way, you don't have to take any of this down because I'm going to I actually throw it in the chat as soon as I'm done with this. I will give you a PDF of all these slides. And I have some links on the slides that you're going to want to use. So they'll all be hot linked in the PDF. So no need to take some notes. Just soak it all in and get the takeaways here. Includes, okay, so as of November 30th, only 23 of that amount has been spent. That's how many of the federal dollars just in ESSER I are still sitting on the table. And all this money, by the way, is going to have to be given back if it's not used. So it has to be allocated. We'll talk about how we do that in a moment. I have a dashboard here of Pennsylvania. This is really neat. I'm going to click on this and see if this works for us. Does this go to, are you able to see that or did it not go? All right, let me stop sharing and reshare. All right. That link that I just clicked on takes us to this. You see this, Pennsylvania. There's the LEAs, the local education agencies. You can see, all right, so since I looked last, we are at 50% now. You can see the 50% has been awarded, utilized. So we still have 50% of that money to go after. As you scroll down, you can see the ESSER amounts awarded. And how much has been spent. And if you keep scrolling down on this link, and this is not part of ESSER, but it's the Governor's Emergency Education Relief called the GEER Fund. That is also your governor, and here in Pennsylvania, fund from the state budget. And you can see right here, only 2% of that has been spent. So that is more grant money that you can go after in Pennsylvania directly with the governor. Take a look at the higher, if you keep scrolling here in purple, higher education. And by the way, you can look this up for every single state. I'll show you how to do that in one moment. But take a look at higher education and look how much has been spent. Almost 90% of the higher education emergency relief fund. So that means the colleges and universities have not hesitated to go after getting the money that they know that is there for them. All right, so this is really interesting. And when you got a filter down here, you can scroll through and see all the colleges and universities, what their student enrollment is, and how much funding they have received through that. That's pretty neat. So if you look at the link up here, you see how it says state/PA. If I were to just go to NJ, I know we have some New Jersey folks on here. You can just put in any state at the end of that link, and it'll show us also New Jersey's about 50% with these ESSER funds. Also the governor's emergency relief. And here we are with the higher education, over 90%. So I really found this really interesting to look at. And by the way, you can see right here the specific districts who have been awarded ESSER funds. So that's fun to look through and see your neighboring districts and maybe your district, hopefully your district. So let me stop sharing and.
Hey, Keith, that was round one, correct? And
yeah.
We're now in phase two, if you will. Are we past the deadline for any of these folks to recoup any of round one at this point?
That's going to be, they've already been awarded to your school districts if it, so I'm sure that deadline has passed for the district to apply for it. So, but going to your school administrators and your business administrators in your school and asking them about that. You'll see even for ESSER II, the deadline for applying for that was March 19th, which we're just passed. But again, maybe your schools have already secured funding. You can still go to them with that. We'll talk about all that in a moment. ESSER III is on the way as the legislation was just passed in Biden's legislation. So we'll get to that in a moment. Let me get back to my PowerPoint. All right, so anyway, the links there to PA and the New Jersey dashboards are there. There's also a fact sheet. Again, I should stop sharing because you can't see that. Do you see that fact sheet? All right, so you see the ESSER fund and ESSER II funds, and you have some facts about the deadlines for awarding the funds. So check out this, the ESSER I that we were just talking about. They have to be, the funds have to be, actually this goes for all three of the ESSERs. They have to be awarded within a year of receiving them. So, we're coming up on June's a deadline here where these need to be awarded or that money is going to have to be given back if it's not utilized. The CARES Act, I'm sorry, the second ESSER fund, ESSER II, we have another year for that. That's, you can see the deadline is 2022. And then for the ESSER III, it will be 2023. And again, you'll have a year, so you'll have through 2024 to get that. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but I just wanted to show you this fact sheet and the reporting and the tracking of funds. All that information is right there clearly in these two columns on this fact sheet. So hopefully you'll find that interesting. Okay, I probably won't be doing that much hopping back and forth now. There's another ESSER FAQ link there. So you'll see on the PDF, you'll be able to link to that and go to those. So let's look at the timeline, the ESSER timeline. This kind of lays out starting from last spring, and the department made the initial awards. It shows the spring of 2021 where the states are going to have to return funds that are not awarded. The department will make reallocation awards. I think there's a deadline of September 30th for the department to do that. September 30th, 2022 will be the last date for districts to spend that money, right? They'll have a year from when it's awarded to use it. So that gives you a little view of the timeline. So just a little bit about ESSER II then. What is that? It's the second round of funding from the CARES Act. So remember that in December, I think it was December 27th, that was when Congress passed the second round of the relief supplemental appropriations is what they called it, right? And that was $53.4 billion for schools nationwide. I believe, again, if my figures are correct, $2.22 billion for Pennsylvania schools alone. Again, these are allocated based on Title 1A. They are not Title 1A funds, just the allocation percentages as ESSER I was. Not required to provide equitable services. So in ESSER I, I think there was delineation of equitable services needing to be considered in that allocation, whereas with ESSER II, it does not require those equitable services to be considered. The deadline for the LEAs, your districts, to apply for this was March 19th. So hopefully they did that a few weeks ago to receive the ESSER II funds. And these provide even more defined allowable uses than ESSER I. And I have a whole slide on things that, and we'll talk about how we can define allowable uses and what we're looking at there. So I think this is important because there's always lots of rumors and things about what it is, what it isn't. Let's just talk about what both ESSER and ESSER II are not. They're not renewable. So it's kind of, they say you use it or you lose it funding programs. So and I should say, unlike Title IV funds, right, for a well-rounded education, that music, of course, has been targeted that that's a place where we can go for funding a well-rounded education. Those are renewable. So these are, the ESSER funds are not. Although the Title I formula is used, these are not Title I funds. I hope I've said that enough. They are not restricted to PPE purchases. So a lot of people think that these ESSER funds are just for PPE. You're going to see in the next slide or two what a variety of ways you can use these funds, and you're going to have to be creative. It's not the only funding source. So I mentioned the governor's emergency funds. There are other funds for non-public schools. So here's the governor's emergency education relief fund, Title IV that I just mentioned, which is renewable funding to support a well-rounded education, and the EANS, that's the emergency assistance for non-public schools. And we just took a look at that. And this is what I just threw in here at the last minute. So let's talk about ESSER III, which is on its way. This is part of Biden's American Rescue Plan, the ARP Act of 2021. $129 billion for education. That's twice as much as ESSER II. Everybody realizes that if you're watching our numbers. So apparently, from what I understand, again, I'm not the expert at this. I'm just relaying information that I've kind of pulled together here. But I think 10% of the money going to states for American Rescue Plan for education can be set aside for the state to use for all the districts, all education in the state. So if then that's left with 90% that will flow to public schools. And I actually couldn't fit it on the slide because it went into my money here, but I should also include charter schools on this because it said 90% will flow to public schools and charter schools. Again, these are not Title I funds. More specifically, these funds are targeted for learning recovery loss, I should say. Maybe I didn't add that in there. So think about learning loss. We should say learning loss and learning recovery. We'll talk more details about that. Summer enrichment programs, after school programs. And as we think about our beginning fourth grade instrumentalists who we didn't start this year, this is the kind of thing that we can specifically use this money for. So you may not have run summer program. I can't express this enough. A lot of people may not run summer music programs. I would seriously consider doing that and having it completely paid for by ESSER III funds, including transportation to those summer programs. 2/3 of ESSER funds are immediately available to states, and schools will have until 2024 to allocate these funds. So how can funds be used? Of course, PPE, right? We all think that first with all the masks, musician masks and instrument masks. As I think Bob Carpensey was just saying, thinking about the fall, these are not going away. These are still things that we're going to need to be considering, and other PPE products and distancing, cleaning and sanitation of instruments. Tom, maybe I have a question for you about Zeswitz. How does the Zeswitz offer instrument cleaning and sanitizing?
Oh, well, absolutely. That's part and parcel of what we do. But I would also include in that if you're sharing instruments, meaning that in period 1, somebody's using a tuba, and in period 2, another child is using that same tuba, it remains, I mean, that you could buy another, you should be able to buy another tuba with this because it is a safety item. I'm seeing a lot of tents being propped up right now in many schools that's the band room, outside tent, the whole nine. Some schools have purchased these, some are renting them. But again, these are anything that you can deem a safety for student item, including student purchasing or sanitizing of instruments or the PPE. The list can go on and on. You can be somewhat creative. For those that are on the call, I put it in the chat and nobody kind of responded to it. How many of you are aware of this? I know some of my clientele have asked for pricing on certain things, and I assume that that's because your administration maybe said, hey, we're going to get a windfall here. What do you need? Thank you, Dawn. I saw the thumbs up there. Perkiomen Valley does come to mind, but has anybody experienced an administrator or administration coming to you to ask what you need? I'm throwing it out there. You can put it in the chat. You can raise your hand, yes or no, or what have you. Just a thought.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate that. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of tubas and French horns being ordered in the next year. Yeah, I really think this is the time to go after our instrument inventory. We'll get to that in a second, but the cleaning and sanitizing of instruments. And as Tom was talking, I also heard that this can be backdated. So this includes not only future purchases, but let's say purchases of, say, PPE and cleaning stuff that your district has made in the last year, that can go to supplement, that what you've paid for that. So it can be extra mouthpieces, of course, renting and purchasing of instruments, as Tom was just alluding to. Music stands. Oh, getting more music stands. Think about the separation we have to do now in the band room. We can't have people sitting right next to each other side by side sharing a music stand. Everybody's going to need their own music stand. That means you might need more music stands. Even sheet music. So we're talking about purchasing music with this money. Again, right? Your musicians are looking at the same part, sharing parts. Now you need more parts for everybody. It might mean ordering another complete set of music and books, your method books. Training. So professional development and training on even using software and programs because you are still teaching hybrid. Those kinds of things addressing what we've been doing these funds can go to pay for that. Hardware and software. Hopefully, we've been learning a lot of new things with our hardware and software over the last year, and hopefully we don't stop using it. Even when we're all back in person, we continue to use these things, smart music, music first, whatever the platforms happen to be. They're going to be great additions to our programs, even continuing on in the future. But we can secure the hardware and software, iPads, devices, Chromebooks, that can all be purchased with these funds. Coaches. So let's actually talk about the learning loss for a minute, because especially the ESSER III funds and the largest amount of money that we're talking about, this is really addressing how this has impacted student learning and learning loss over the last year. Not just not starting a whole year's worth of fourth graders on their instruments, but coaches for, say, a summer program or an after-school program that you want to put in place to bring in instrument-specific coaches to help you with that learning loss and catching those kids up. So I'm sure whether we're at the middle school, high school, elementary school, I think we're all suffering with that learning loss with our students. Tom mentioned the outdoor tents. PA system. So if we're doing outside, we probably shouldn't be yelling. We should be having a clip-on microphone and having a PA system so that we can teach appropriately even in the outdoor settings. So these funds can go to that. And summer and remedial classes. We'll talk a little bit more about summer camps and that kind of thing. Facility upgrades and modifications, the ventilation system. This cannot be used to build new facilities, but it can be used for facility upgrades. Okay. And as I was saying, addressing learning loss is the biggest part of this. So let's talk about next who applies for funds. So I put advocate here. You need to be the advocate for you and for your program and for your students. And honestly, your administrators want you to be that advocate. I've heard administrators and superintendents say they want their teachers in their schools to think that their program is the most important program in the school. That's what every superintendent wants, but they want to see you being the advocate for that. So I know Tom just asked whose administration is coming to them asking, what do you need? All right, I didn't see many hands, I saw one. So, but I saw the looks on some faces. We got to go the other direction. The idea is to make a plan, make sure that we've got all our ducks in a row, and we've got price lists, and we know exactly what we want, and that and we go to them with that. So here's the APA coordinators, principals, your business administrators. Those are the ones to work with on the funds. So your district applies for the funds. Individuals don't. Individual teachers don't apply for them. So educators need to advocate for their programs and communicate their needs to their administrators. And submitting a clear outline of funds and materials needed with your administration is the most effective way for you to be successful securing these funds. I also have heard administrators say, I don't know if some of you saw this, apparently PMEA did one of these just this past week and had Mark Despotakis doing something very similar to what we're doing tonight and giving a lot of details. And I actually watched it today and it was great. Got some great takeaways and things that I'll also share with you tonight. But the way he started out was interviewing the actual superintendent that won PMEA's Outstanding Superintendent Award. I think his name was Dr. Thomas Ralston from the Avonworth School District. So he said that he can't guarantee that he'll always be able to say yes to everything, but he wants to have a reason to say yes to everything. And he's told all his principals that we need to find a way to say yes to everything. Boy, wouldn't it be great if every administrator said exactly that same thing. So, but you know what? Why don't you keep that in the back of your mind, depending on how well submitted your outline, how clear your ask is, they, I think, want to say yes to you because they're saying yes to the kids, right? All right, so what can I do? Not me, you. Talk with your administration now. Make sure that they understand the unique requirements of your music program. Music specific PPE, they might think that they've ordered the PPE they need for the school and they've done that, but they may not understand that there are music specific PPE items, the musician masks, the bell covers, and all that sort of thing. So communicate that. Additional resources depending on where your class is held inside, like we were just talking about with the tent and the PA system and things like that. Facility requirements from the most recent studies. I'm not going to go to this right now, but you can click on here. This will take you to the aerosol study. Okay, the most updated version of that aerosol study. So you'll have all the data. And the other thing is this link to the short form online. It's literally a 1 or 2 page, and that's 1 page, that breaks down the aerosol studies into just 4 or 5 bullet points so that it will be really, really easy for you to help communicate those things to your superintendent. All right, so those will be good resources for you. So I'll work with us at Zeswitz to create an customized list of needs. Tom, can I throw that to you since you were just kind of talking about that a little bit and you were asking about lists? Could you talk as an educational representative of how you would go about working with your clients, helping them?
Sure, I can certainly try. You're putting me on the spot, Keith. My goodness, off the cuff. It's all good. I think it's more about leaving no stone unturned in terms of what your program needs are. I mean, Keith kind of laid out everything from technology to tents, if you will, and there's everything in between: the sanitization stuff, the PPE, the procurement of needed instruments that are shared. Whether it's a tuba or a bass violin, it doesn't matter. If you can justify the need, the money is there for you. Again, ask us or ask your go-to person. I mean, nothing is out of bounds at this point. As long as it impacts your program from a safety and security standpoint, as long as it engages your students, nothing is off the table. I mean, what's the worst thing you could do? If you ask, they say no. But I think getting to that, Stephen Carey, you put in the chat that you asked your teachers for a list of needs. What prompted that?
Actually, I just happen to know that like our district has about 2.2 million in ESSER II funds on the table. And I went to we have 2 band directors in the district, and I just went to them and I said, now would probably be a good time to take a look at your inventory and see what's aging and needs to be replaced and what needs to not be shared. I'm trying to avoid those kinds of situations where, you got kids sharing French horns, tubas, tenor saxes, things like that.
Okay, so how were you so astute in knowing this, or you're just connected and you kind of knew the money was rolling out? Just curious.
My boss is one of the people, so I'm a curriculum supervisor. So my director of curriculum is kind of the guy that handles all the grant funding. So I knew I had a heads up on what was kind of there.
There you go. I just wanted to mention here to collaborate with the other teachers in your district for bulk discounts. And again, if you're going to create this itemized list, you're going to need prices. So that's kind of what I was saying, working with your school music reps with your needs. Let us price things out for you and get you prices so that you can then go to your district prepared. So some key takeaways from what we've talked about. Multiple rounds of funding. ESSER II, much larger than ESSER I, and ESSER III to come. And we know that is larger than both of them. They're non-renewable. Use it or lose it. They're not Title I funds for the 10th time tonight. It can be used for a variety of applications. First round being awarded right now. ESSER II application deadline was March 19th, so that will be being awarded now. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. We have never, ever, ever seen this much money thrown at education, ever. And we probably never will again. So think about that. That is unbelievable. So it is an opportunity. And Zeswitz Music can help. Mainly, we're talking about using this to address COVID-19 and learning loss. I wanted to make note, and actually I forgot, I was going to introduce in the beginning, and I made myself a note, and I still forgot. So Tom Kelly's been speaking. So Tom, thank you, and wave. That's Tom Kelly, and that's his email at Zeswitz. I don't see Mike Arena on the call, but that's Mike's email. Tom Polakowski's on the call. Hi, Tom. Want to unmute and say hi?
Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a good evening and enjoying all the information.
Thanks, Tom. And Matt Gould's on the line. Been with Zeswitz, what, under a year? The newest road rep. Go ahead and unmute and say hi, Matt.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you. Thanks for doing this, Keith.
Yeah, thanks. For those of you who don't know, Matt lives in New Jersey. He's our New Jersey rep and lives in Central Jersey. Which county? Which county are you in?
I'm in Burlington now, but I'm moving to Mercer soon. As you can
Okay.
see, I'm in the process of moving.
Empty shelves. And you also took over Andy's schools as he moved to a different position. So Andy Muller, but I have Andy on here as well. And so that's your ed rep team at Zeswitz. What do you think of that graphic, TK? All right. Did you miss it? All right. All right, let me stop sharing. So let's talk questions and what else? I think in my mind, thinking about after school programs for the remainder of the year, and again, those funds will be able to use even if you get them after the fact to previous work. Think about summer camps and summer programs. The superintendent that Mark Despotakis interviewed this week was talking about summer programs that they're instituting for all subject areas, but certainly the arts. And that he wanted to make it not like summer school. He wanted it to be more like a summer camp environment. That, and of course, you know, music teachers know how to make that feel like a summer camp more than anybody, but he really wanted actually all his subject areas to feel more like an enrichment camp. And again, ESSER fundings will pay for all of this, including the transportation to these summer programs. And again, we're looking at learning loss. We had somebody else, I guess it was Mark, mentioned, think about our fourth grade. If you're a fourth grade elementary school and you just started half the amount of fourth graders you normally do, or there are some people that didn't do any recruiting this year and started no fourth graders. Why not start a summer program this summer and start all those people who were going to start last year or would have started, as well as your current fourth graders who are going to start in September, and start them together. So you're giving a jump start on the people who are going to start in September, get them started in July, alongside the people that you're catching up because of that learning loss. That has impacted an entire grade of people who are going to start a musical instrument. These funds are perfect for that. I hope you would consider that. So I'm not sure if anybody had questions in the chat. TK, if you're fielding anything, or go ahead. We have a small enough group here. If you want to just unmute yourself and jump in. Again, I'm not the expert. I'll answer whatever questions I can, but certainly our educational reps on here too can answer more specific Zeswitz questions. Anybody?
I'll chime in real quickly in the chat. It seems to be all over the road. People that kind of sought this financial stuff out on their own because they were kind of in the know. I think Michelle Claus said something about they alluded to it, but they were very mysterious about it. I mean, we're talking a boatload of money here that the district can put in their pocket. And again, you know, the music department is such a small entity within what is needed. I'm sure the athletic directors are jumping all over this. Oh, we need football helmets. We need, we need rackets. We need more goal nets. We need just all over it. But I guess it's more about, how do you ask? Who do you go to? Who's the first person to say, has the district applied for these funds? Okay, because again, the due date was March 19th. It's already in the works. And from that, will you get a straight answer, I guess, is the other question. But again, as Keith said, being an advocate for your program, I think just asking the question, hey, what about these ESSER funds that are out there? How does that impact our program? And again, I think it's a collaborative effort, band, chorus, and orchestra together. I think you all can benefit from it, but who's going to take that first step and actually ask, really?
And not just band, chorus, and orchestra, but elementary, middle school, and high school. That vertical alignment is crucial. We had a call a couple of months ago with a lot of secondary people talking about the effects of this learning loss of that 1 year of fourth graders not starting on the middle school and the high schools for the next 10 years, 8 to 10 years. It's going to affect our programs. So thinking about what I just talked about with the summer could be one way of jumping on repairing that. And we've got the money to do it, to hire people to help us do it, to buy the instruments, everything. So I want a quick review. I was circling ESSER I, 13.2 billion, ESSER II, 54.3 billion, ESSER III, 129 billion. Those are the amounts that have just been poured into just elementary and secondary education.
Tom and Keith, I have a question. Ryan Congress at Each and Souderton with Michelle Claus. When people do come up with ideas of how all of this works, can Zeswitz somehow, I talk to Tom once a week for 10 minutes at the most. And
he's lying. He takes up 25 minutes of my time all the time.
And rightfully so.
I'm kidding.
So my question is, if somebody, like, there's people on this call here who I have no idea who Bob Carpensy is. You're the first name that I saw. You're right below me in my Zoom call here. I have no idea who you are, but he may have this most amazing idea of what he's doing and what he's doing. How am I going to find out about that? Because I consider myself a creative person, but if I don't know what's happening over there, how are we going to know what those things? Is there going to be a portal of ideas or things, that a toolbox that we're going to be able to use?
Ryan, that is great. And I will pass that along and make sure that happens. One of the things that we would like to do, Richard, who works for Zeswitz, he's taken over the new social media, all the social media accounts. We would like to throw out these success stories, right, as they come in on the MailChimps and on the social media of success stories. So if we've got great ideas and they're being implemented in a particular district, we want to share that with everybody so all the districts know about that, right, Tom? We've been talking about that on a weekly basis at our meetings, and maybe you can talk to that in a second. Hey, Bob, since he mentioned you, I'm going to throw it at you. Bob, I'm sure, does have very creative ideas, but no, I wanted you to introduce yourself since he doesn't know you. Go ahead, Bob.
Well, hi, Ryan. I'm Bob Carpensy. I teach in the Downingtown School District. We're like southeastern Pennsylvania. And I'm elementary band, 4th and 5th grade. I'm also our district curriculum supervisor. I just took that over this year, which was a really bad choice, perhaps. This is a really crazy year to be stepping into a leadership role, just because it's been one fire after another budget-wise and, all that good stuff, and trying to learn the ropes. We don't get any training. You just get put into the position and they're like, good luck. So,
well, if you ever want to talk 4th and 5th grade band, give me a call and I'll talk to you.
Well, I'm a nerd about that too. So maybe we've met our match for each other.
Throw your emails in the chat, both of you. All right. Who's up next? Any other questions, comments, creative ideas? Please share your ideas. Ryan's looking for them.
Yeah, I have an idea. We were approved to have our spring concerts. I'm the middle school choir director and the high school choir director. We were approved to have them outside on the football field. Okay, live music, you know, no more virtual concerts. Okay. However, I mean, there's not a sound system. So something that I'm going to go to my administration and ask for with the ESSER funds is to have a sound company come out for those 2 nights and set everything up and run everything so that we can, you know, be with the kids and direct the kids and talk with parents and do that kind of stuff and not worry about feedback and what channel is this mic and that, you know, you name it. So I don't know what they're going to say. But this session was helpful that I can go back, you know, and have some evidence, you know, for my case here. But that's one thing that I am going to try for.
I think Steve Carey is volunteering to come down and run sound.
If they say no, I'm asking him.
Anything else? Questions? Good.
I'm sorry. I'll yield.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Tom.
In the chat box, Michelle, that's a great idea. Maybe a central sharing spot for the folks that are on this particular call. Maybe we can revisit in 2 weeks or something along those lines and kind of see where everybody got with their information finding. Look, if you're willing, we're willing, we'll set it all up and send you a link and put a kind of a thinking melding pot of ideas and where people are together. So I love it, Michelle. It's awesome.
If I can just ask, and I might have missed this, I just upgraded my Zoom before and it went haywire for a couple minutes and I couldn't see when you were sharing your screen, Keith. You were showing before like a list of districts in PA. It was right at the beginning is when I didn't see it. I'm assuming since these funds, it's got to be public record, which districts are getting how much and stuff. Like, because I feel like, you know, for athletics, I'm sure our districts are going to be very forthright about spending the money, but music, they'll be like, oh, we didn't get any, you know, lie to you basically. So is there a way that we can basically call their bluff and be like, well, actually, I know that you got this much. What are you really spending it on? And I want like $5 of it. Is that on that website? I apologize if I missed that earlier.
Yes, it was. Yeah. All the districts that received money are listed on there. I'm gonna throw this PDF into the chat right now, and those are linked on the slides from my computer, desktop. Zeswitz PDF. Okay, it is. All right, is it there? Yep, should be in the chat if you want to just download that. That's the slides from tonight. And I'll also do a follow-up email and send it in that as well to everybody else. Anything else for the good of the order? Tom, Matt, anything from you? Go ahead, Vanessa.
Sorry, just to recap. So I go to my financial people at my school, and I'm at a charter school, so that should be interesting. I go to them and I tell them, hey, you know, like, have you applied for this? And they willingly share that information with me about money. And then I create a list of things like, hey, if we did apply for this and we are granted this money, it can be used towards this for our program. And that's the process there.
Yeah, Vanessa, before you even approach them, I would at least, even if you don't have details and prices and all that sort of thing, like make your wish list. What is first and foremost on your mind about how you can address learning loss? And you need to say it in those terms. My students have been affected with learning loss this year in these ways. And this is how the program has been impacted. And go ahead and just put some bullet points. So, you know, I would even, if I was going to stop an administrator in the hall, I want to at least have on the tip of my tongue or in my pocket a list of bullet points to share and not just be like, hey, did you receive money? Or what about these funds? You know, like I would really have your ducks started to be in a row, even to engage in the conversation. You can always say, based on their reaction, I can put together specific price lists and itemize things for you and get back to you next week or in a couple days with that. But
And then like,
I'm sorry, Vanessa froze, or did I freeze?
you know, from scratch, I haven't all yet.
I'm sorry, Vanessa, you froze. You want to try
Sorry,
it?
it's probably me. It's my.
Try it again.
My fault. Yeah, I'm really sorry. So from scratch. So like, I just don't, because everything else would be established. You know, you talk about like having like a tuba player and then needing another tuba because of the instance that you're in. I don't really have that data. So I'm kind of like, I'm wondering how to get it towards building that, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I don't know.
I'm sorry, what is your position?
I teach high school music, and it's just like all broad general music. I teach chorus, I teach band when there's a band, there's small ensembles, whatever I can fit into the schedule and make work, I'm doing. But it's just sort of a mess right now.
So I would think about one, the learning loss from students during this year, but also as you look at reopening in the fall, and how we are still probably going to be impacted by having distance between people. Do you have enough music stands, or for everybody to have their own? Or if not, you need to order some music stands. Do you need to order more music because you can't share parts? The things that we were just talking about, like that.
Yeah.
Do you
need? I've already talked to them like about a tent, because I in general don't have a room. So it's I just wondered like how it could be fun, and that's good, you know, learning loss. That makes sense. So
and things that can help you teach in that outdoor setting, like the PA system we talked about, and of course you can use that in an auditorium setting if you're teaching your classes in an auditorium situation. Yeah, I think we've got everything here, even about that software and hardware. Getting iPads for your program, or getting everybody on smart music. You know, getting a subscription for all your students to have smart music at your school. Let's see, in the chat, my wife, how do we get administrators to apply?
Sorry, I just caught that myself, Keith. I'm going, wait a minute, that's his wife.
Yeah. So Jen, you want to ask?
I'm just wondering, I was looking at the list and I saw that our school hasn't applied or isn't on that list. So who do we go to, and can we help to get them the information that they need to apply? Because most likely they aren't going to go searching for it.
Yeah. So if you download those slides, you've got the information right there at your fingertips that you can share with your administrators. And the administrator to go to is your business administrator. Okay. Are you still on talking terms with them?
Somewhat, yeah.
I would also encourage those that don't know if your school district has applied or not, as of the most recent application deadline of the 19th of March. It's got to be in the minutes of a school board meeting somewhere. It might be deep in the weeds, but I encourage you, if you don't know if your school applied, or if they're not on the list, or if they did and how much did they apply for, I would encourage you to check out your minutes from the school board meetings, or at least the business finance committee meetings.
And then, so if they didn't apply, Jen, for ESSER I or ESSER II now funds by March 19th, then now we've got ESSER III, which is that 129 billion. So it is 5 times more than the first round, and it's twice as much, right? Yeah, it's twice as much as ESSER II. So it's now the time to apply for the ESSER III fund. So yeah, nobody's missed anything here. And those ESSER III funds are even more available for more things. That doesn't have to be equitable, targeted, and is really focusing on learning loss. Anything else?
I have a question. So when districts apply for this money, you mentioned that they use the Title I calculations to determine how much they're going to apply for. So it's not just, they're not just applying for like just a random number. It's a specific formula that they're filling out, and then they apply for that amount. And then once they're awarded that amount, then they have to decide how it's going to be spent? Or does it go the other way around? Do they have to apply for it with the spending in mind?
No, you had it right the first time. They just apply for the amount. The district gets the amount, and then the district decides how to spend it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why you go to your administrators with your asks and your want lists and let them disperse it. Yeah, you don't need that information to apply for it. Your districts already have the ability to have it.
So I'm wondering how charter schools play into this, because, you know, if our district, you know, we have public schools and then we have a charter school that's part of our district, but they're funded in a completely different way. So how do we know how much the charter school is going to siphon out of that full amount that the district has applied for? Or does the charter school apply for that amount separately?
I don't have an answer to that question, Michelle. I'm sorry. I don't know the answer to that. Anybody know anything about charter schools? Yeah.
Because I know in our district, there's a lot of conflict over how the charter school is being funded, because apparently they are being funded out of district money. And it's disproportionate. So in my mind, I'm wondering, okay, so there's this blanket amount that our district is receiving. And in my mind, I'm wondering, do we get to spend all of that money? Or is the charter school going to be competing for some of that funding? And if they do, is it like a specific percentage, or is it just whoever wins? You know, so I'm kind of wondering how that plays out.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm also going to steer you to, and also Seth Jones put in here, he wasn't seeing K-12 districts on that PA page, only the higher ed folks. I think we saw in New Jersey on theirs, the districts were listed. I heard Mark Despotakis say that he has all that information about all the individual districts and what they've received. So I'm sure his email is on the PMEA website. I don't have it at my fingertips. But, you know, and if you don't know, he's Director of Public and Government Affairs for PMEA. That's Mark Despotakis. So he's the one to reach out to get, and he will be happy to give you all the information that you need about districts or point you in the right direction. Okay. And I'm sure, Michelle, that he could answer your charter school question as well. Anything else from anybody?
Hi, Keith. Chris Jennings, how are you?
I'm great.
There was an article on April 1st in the Saratoga Post, and it said that 8 public school districts in our Tri-County area around Springford are destined to receive a combined total of more than $32 million in federal funding under the
Whoops, we lost you. Did you hit a mute button? Chris, we lost you. All right, well, that was a lot of money.
Springford, 4.3 million, Pottsgrove, 3.6 million, Phoenixville, 3.3, O&J, 2.4, Upper Perk, 2.3, Perk Valley, 1.7. So amounts given to each district are in the same proportions as those under the Every Student Succeeds Act. And it says the overall education in Pennsylvania will receive $4.9 billion under the distribution, which is that the initial ESSER 1?
I believe so.
Okay, so I know that Seth was saying that he didn't see anything in regards to Pennsylvania schools being listed, but at least those 8 or 9 school districts that I just mentioned do have something from at least the initial one. So if they applied for the initial one, you would think more than likely they're going to be applying for the second and third phases as well. So
yep.
Just some information for those that might be involved in those districts.
That's great information, Chris. Thanks Thanks for chiming in.
You're welcome.
Anything else from anybody? Well, listen, we're right at 8 o'clock on the button. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. Let Zeswitz know how we can help. And feel free to email the road reps, educational reps, and myself or Randy at any time. All right, and we will do a follow-up, and we'll plan to maybe regroup and do something similar in a couple weeks and hear about people's successes and ideas and where you're going with that. Maybe we even get some more people to join us. All right, well, good night, everybody. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Keith. Tom.
You bet. Have a good night, everyone.